Alrighty then, gentlemen. How are we doing? How are we doing? Oh, the big sight is back. I see. Phil Dance over there. What's going on there, Phil? Man,
Well,
Well,
massaging. I got a bad back, man.
you got
I just
ooh,
trying to massage it out.
what going on?
you get,
Everything all right?
you getting
You
up
sure?
there now, man. You getting
It's
up there.
just exactly just the up there.
Okay.
350.
You got cushion to sit down on. You all right? You all right?
Are you okay? Are you okay? I was
You
thinking
got
of
something
standing
on the
up.
back, a little
I was thinking
Bengiers
of
or
stand up.
something there.
Tiger balm.
Not Bengiers. That's the posh way of saying it. Benjis.
Benjis,
You got some, you got some Benjis. Dude, it's simple Bengier. Yeah, see, that's... Anyway. Hey, everybody. How we doing? Hello. And welcome to another edition of The Living Room. Today's a fantastic day. We're so excited to bring the show to you. But welcome. You're here on We Global, our Facebook page, and this is our show, The Living Room. If this is your first time here, I'm Andre with my good friends Philip and Mark, and we do this almost every Sunday where we just have good old Caribbean conversations and talk about the things that, that mean a lot to us. This is what we do. So if you haven't already, hit share, like our page, follow our page. If you're following on YouTube as well, hit ring the bell and subscribe and what's not. Again, welcome. Hope you're having a fantastic Sunday so far. Welcome to the living room. How are we doing, guys?
Excellent.
Wow.
Ooh,
Yeah, man. Feeling good.
This is different because normally you
Go ahead.
Desi is getting here from Mark.
Tired, man. Tired.
I feel good. I feel good.
You feeling good? Oh, this is excellent there, Phil. Phil, the boy is feeling good.
No back pains.
No, but
That's good for you.
this treat people differently. Clearly, Phil now getting he was saying he's the young boy, the bunch. He vaccine
No,
late and
no
all this
more.
kind of
No
thing.
more.
Hey, Aaron.
You're now settling in. Yes.
You're now settling in. So you're all right now. You're all right. You got a good comfy seat.
I feeling okay now.
went
I
to the
feeling good. I had a
bathroom.
good day today. We went out. We went to a place called Little Morton Hall
Listen more than
today, which is an
Where is
old.
that?
It's an old Tudor building in a place called Congleton,
Listen to the
so
man.
in Cheshire.
Man, going for Sunday afternoon walks
Well
and thing now.
assimilated, man.
Yeah, man, it was good. It was fascinating to just dive into that history and on this building. If you look it up, it's a very peculiar looking building because
Right.
it's to use a beautiful Caribbean word, obzoki.
Okay.
Yeah, it's shifted and because it's not built on foundations, it's built on plinths. So the building has shifted, and then they have like a slate roof as opposed to a thatch roof and so on. So that's weighted it down. So it's kind of a lesson in bad Tudor architecture.
I don't feel Barra is sold on it.
I
I'm
still
just
think it's-
listening.
I still think
I'm
it's-
learning. I don't know this place.
It is fascinating. It's
Listen.
fascinating to visit because as you go in there, the building existed since the early 1500s, right? And as you go in there, and the Mortons were
Hey, Pablo.
were rich farmers, and then they had their land taken away from them during the Civil War because they were Catholics and supported Charles
Wow.
in the
Okay.
battle. So all that
Yeah.
history is in there, but it's a obzoki shaped building because of bad architectural decisions as they were trying to show off basically with the building and didn't follow good practice.
I got a book for you, man. It's called Around the M60. You might like it. It charts all the history of the buildings and stuff around the M60 in
Okay.
Manchester.
Oh, that sounds
Fascinating book. You might like it.
Sound like the book for Phil.
Yes.
I would enjoy that. Yeah.
Hey, Natalie
man.
Gore. How you doing, Natalie?
Hey,
Hope all
Natalie,
is
how
well
are
there
you?
in Trinidad?
Yes,
Hope you're doing well.
indeed. So I saw you went back to the office this week, man. I couldn't get hold of you at all, Barra.
Yeah,
Wow.
man. I
How's the
venture
commute?
out. I just venture out on the train, all masked up and everything like that. No, it was actually interesting. Actually, I went in on is it Tuesday or Monday? I can't remember when the first day was, but it's interesting. You can see people now beginning to move around a little bit, but London is still pretty much a relative ghost town, to be honest with you.
Wow.
But it was interesting to be out in a different headspace.
So when you
so
went
it's
in,
good.
you went in with other people. You all sort of coordinated going in together, so you could
The
have.
first day,
Okay.
day, we kind of coordinated that, but then after that, you kind of just went in and did your own thing, really.
Breath for yourself.
Yeah, bread for yourself, kind of thing.
Well,
Yeah.
Well.
Oh, hey, Rhoda, how you doing? Hey, we just gave it to him for you.
Give
So
my
he's
love
seeing
to
that.
my
He's
cousin.
seeing
Okay.
he's seeing that on his screen.
Woo, a lot of love there, boy.
Yeah, he's annoyed that you're not watching live and you're watching later. So
Yeah. We get him to comment on that because
exactly.
I mean, come on. I mean, she says she loves him, but
Exactly. But you don't have
How
time.
deep is
But I'm
your
not going to
love?
say any more. 'Cause I don't want her to call me out, right?
Yeah.
No, but it was interesting going back and it's interesting to see people because now here you don't have to wear masks in certain spaces. You don't have to do this. You don't. So everybody kind of just doing their own thing or as they see fit.
Feeling the way. Yeah.
I'm feeling the way in and stuff. So the office still empty, but people still feeling it. But it was good. It was good to just move around. It was also good to see a lot of people like the small businesses and stuff that were heavily impacted by having nobody about. And so obviously they closed their doors and had to deal with a lot. So it was interesting to see that, people sitting down in the independent cafes and doing different things, and you see people trying to get back to normal. So that was good to see.
No, absolutely. I think
That's
that's the government's big concern right there. That those small businesses on the high street in the cities can survive and continue to thrive. So absolutely. Hi Dennis, how you doing? Good to see you.
Yeah, man. So that was good.
So you've been watching the Olympics, man? You mean?
Yeah, man. I been in the Olympics, man. I wasn't sure how it was gonna be with no one in the stands and all that kind of stuff. But to be honest with you, watching it in the context of everything that's going on, it kind of makes sense. So you just block it. You don't worry about all that. You just try to enjoy what you're seeing on the screen. I don't know how the athletes are being impacted by it. Clearly, some are different, more differently than some. But it was good.
And not to be forgotten, because there was a world record today, huh? Wow.
I gotta admit, I actually thought that she had misstep on the step. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, she pulled out, and I didn't realize that she had actually made it. I thought she had pulled out.
Yeah, I thought she was just gonna stop and say, "Okay, I just take the gold medal."
Yeah.
But then when I saw her land,
fine.
the jump, I was like, "Whoa!"
But she was threatening for
15
the whole
meters.
the whole competition. She was threatening though. So
Yeah, man.
But I suppose it's when the pressure was off and she was already won. She
I
just
went
went,
ready. Just go for it.
let me go do this thing.
Yeah.
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 And I see Italian takeover from Bolt.
Wow.
Interesting to see. I was like, okay.
And also the first final in how
weird.
many years where there's not a Jamaican?
Yeah. So Blake didn't make it through in the semifinals there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was weird watching that 100-meter semifinals. I gotta admit, I was
It
like,
felt odd.
this is the first time I was like, I'm watching this, but this is the first time that I feel like back here.
Yeah, there was no real
Yeah.
energy in it.
And not only because Bolt or no Jamaicans weren't there, I didn't feel like there was. I mean, the grass was there, but you didn't feel as if there was any.
Who can we get
charisma,
behind,
man.
Yeah,
There was no charisma in nobody that was saying, "Look at me, let me watch you." There was that was missing completely. So I was like, she don't care.
Darnell Hughes.
Nah, he ain't doing that for me. As far as having,
Can even get her off the blocks, Phil?
yeah, man.
I know, but
Put the heavy.
I was still back at him.
I thought he had a good chance to medal.
I
Actually,
thought so too. Yeah.
Yeah, well, he was alright, but it was just one of them ones actually. He was like, nobody with no real personality here that at least let me watch you, and that was a weird feeling for the first time in how many years? 12, 14 years or so.
Yeah,
so that
man.
was actually a weird one, But it was good. But I loving it. I enjoying watching everything. I enjoying watching all the different things. I enjoy watching all the different stuff. Oh, it seemed like somebody saying we got a problem there. Mark, check that out. Let's make sure that Facebook's still going.
Okay.
Yeah, but it should be good. We could get that up and running. No, but I think it's good. Were you watching BBC Discovery? Were you watching everything?
I watching on Eurosport and BBC.
Yeah, Eurosport.
So
Here in the UK, Eurosport is the best place to watch. The BBC kind of, They're all right.
It's curated. It's curated. But there are two things. One, it's
They're
curated
talking too much, man.
It's curated for the British. One, to give the narrative around that, and two, it is very competitive to get the rights to Olympic footage, to get the rights to do that. So it is what it is.
Man, they're talking too much, man. Too much talking. You want to see sports and them talking all the time.
Some people like that. Some people love the in-between talk.
You can't be talking so much in between stuff when you got about 15 sports happening simultaneously when you're talking.
Yeah.
And it's the Olympics.
Yeah.
People want to see sport, irrespective of if somebody British in the run-ins or not. You want to see sport. I mean, I watch handball. The only time I ever watch handball or care about handball is during the Olympics. I could care less about handball. It's such a violent sport. I'm like, what? These people is something else. But I watch
Rugby sevens.
I was into the rugby sevens.
I watched some of that as well. That was good.
That was definitely something else.
Yeah.
To watch the rugby sevens and the Fiji women's team.
Yes.
That was something else to watch. Incredible. There. So I enjoy that. But some of the other stuff, I was like, nah, man, I can't deal with some of this stuff.
Yeah.
But for me, BBC was talking too much. So I went to get myself a little discovery thing and watch all of your sport where you can just pick anything. Pick what you want to watch and watch everything that you want to watch. So that's
there's a channel for everything. So I've been catching back up with volleyball. That's been good.
Yeah, volleyball. They changed the rules in volleyball. I used to thought that you had to do side outs and stuff, but no, you're scoring every point.
You're scoring every point. There's some things I don't like about it. So you can serve and it can touch your net, and it's still good. You know, you can also. There used to be a service box. Many years ago, there's no longer a service box, so you just have to serve from behind the line. Yeah,
guys on Facebook, just let us know if you're seeing everything.
Yeah.
Because we thought we were getting a little notice here that we're having an issue on Facebook. But just let us know if you're there. If you can hear everything properly, if you can see everything properly, just let us know.
Yeah, just drop us a message in the chat, guys. I'm here.
Chat there.
That's good enough. We'll keep rolling.
All good.
Yeah.
All good.
Yeah.
You know, and we would know that is happening. But yeah, man, that's why I'm watching all kinds of different sports and that kind of stuff. So that's good. And then the other weird thing too that's happening here is that this tournament called the 100. You watching this 100 thing?
I haven't had a chance to watch any, but yeah, I'm curious about it.
Yeah. We must ask our guest when he comes in if he's.
I'm sure he'll have an opinion.
I was thinking of going because there was actually one of the games at Old Trafford recently. But to be honest, if I get a chance, I would go and watch it. It's just an evening out, you know.
No, it's good. But look, it's Emancipation Day today, and all over the Caribbean, all over the world. Let's hope as well. People are commemorating Emancipation Day. We know what that means. I see a lot of people saying Happy Emancipation Day. I'm not one that necessarily celebrates Emancipation Day. I don't know what you guys think about that. I commemorate it, but not necessarily celebrate it, even though I might understand why some might do that. And we can get into all kind of discussions about, are we really emancipated and that kind of stuff. That'd be a good conversation to have also. But even for that, while we're having Emancipation Day, just looking to make sure that everything is still working properly. So hope everyone is seeing the show properly. As well, we have our guest in. Let's go, Mark. Go on. You do the thing today on who we got in while I look at some stuff.
Well, you know, when we last spoke to Michael Holding back in the autumn of last year, when we inducted him onto the Wall of Legends, it was a moment when he mentioned in the conversation he's doing a book. I'm writing a book, fellas, I think he said. And we said, well, look, Mikey, when you do release and publish your book, we would love to have you back in the living room to talk us through the pages of the book and to share the experience. So the book was published a few weeks ago, and we've been reading it, and I have to say, it's absolutely fascinating, extremely powerful, very raw in places, because I felt in listening to it this week that there are some parts of this book that's a very hard listen. But it's our reality. It's our lived reality. And I am so pleased that Michael Holding, with all that he has done in his life, from cricket to broadcasting, has found a moment to actually start looking at how we need to revisit the education of what's happened with Black people throughout our history. Why we kneel, how we rise is Holding's finest delivery, in my opinion. And we know he's thrown down a few over the years, right? But this work, this is his finest delivery. And I'm absolutely delighted, proud, and looking forward to the conversation.
100% agree with that. I have listened to it twice now in the space of a week and a half. And just to hear what I've missed, see what I've missed, just to add more thoughts, some depth, some things you let go and then you come back to it is absolutely amazing. I really enjoy that. Most definitely.
I haven't finished reading the book as yet, but I've been going through kind of slowly. I read quite slowly, to be honest. And what strikes me is, as I read it and the way things are phrased, it sounds just like how Mr. Michael Holden would be speaking to us.
Yes.
And yeah, there's whenever he comes in,
it's authentic, man. It's authentic. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really good. So look, without any further ado, because I know people can say, look, we ain't here to see Trey, y'all talk nonsense. Let's bring in Mr. Holden and let me go down the road. I hope everybody out there is still hearing and seeing.
Because we can't tell that they're not typing.
We can't tell. I got a message here from my good friend Natalie, and Natalie said that while she's seeing and hearing, that for whatever reason they can't comment. That it is saying that the post has been removed when they try to make a comment, even though they're seeing and hearing everything. So we're gonna just assume that y'all seeing and hearing everything, and we can just. It's really sad that you guys can't make comments, because I know by the time most of our shows are finished, we have hundreds and hundreds of comments, and we always like to bring you guys in as part of the show as well, because you're also our guests on the show too. So let's hope that gets reestablished pretty soon. But I hope y'all guys are seeing and hearing. But anyway, without any further ado, let's bring in the legend that is Mikey Holding. Sir, how are we doing?
I am good, thanks, gents. How is everyone?
Yes, we're doing pretty good. Pretty good.
Well.
It appears we've broken the internet just by having you on.
Yeah, man.
Well, I'm glad to be with you guys again. It's been quite a few months, and a lot has happened since then.
Indeed.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah. We know you're a busy man, Mikey, and you get around, but this is such an important moment, huh?
Well, I have been busy doing a lot of stuff about the book. I haven't worked on cricket since early June, but since the book was released, and even before it was released, officially released that is, because a lot of journalists got copies of the book so that they could read it, and then if they wanted to talk to me about it. And I've done over 30 interviews about the book, whether it's radio or TV or podcasts or newspapers. So I've done a lot, and not just here in the UK, South Africa, India, Australia, the Caribbean. So it has been a little bit hectic in that regard. But what has helped me is that I've only had to leave my house on 3 occasions. Wow. Everything else has been on Zoom. So I had to go to 3 different studios, but everything else has been on Zoom. So it hasn't been that hectic, apart from, of course, just doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah. But sometimes the danger with that is that you can overcommit.
Well, the publishers are the ones who put out the schedule. They started with a schedule of about 15 interviews and 15 different, media people. And then they kept on adding, because as I did an interview and people heard it, somebody else said, I need to talk to him as well. So they kept on adding. And about 2 weeks ago, I told them, listen, stop adding anything. I'm not doing any more. Because apart from their schedule, I know people as well, and people get in touch with me and say, Mike, I want you to join me on this podcast, or I'd love you to talk to me on this station or whatever. So I've been adding stuff apart from what the publisher has been adding.
Yes.
And then, I just decided at one point, as I said about 2 weeks ago, that's it.
That's it.
No,
Well,
so
Well, we lucky then, is what you're saying.
Exactly. On that point, I just want to say thank you so much,
guys. Yeah, but I had promised you guys from before that I would come
Of
back on
course.
the program.
We were first
so,
in.
I know
that wasn't an issue. Definitely
Okay.
not an
we
issue.
don't take that for granted.
Okay.
Obviously.
Exactly.
Definitely
It's definitely right, Phil. We don't take that for granted at all. So it's good. It's good. And where are you now? Where are you in?
I'm in Newmarket. I haven't left the UK. You know, the last game that I did was ended early June. And if it hadn't been for the fact as if I went back home, I'd have to do 2 weeks quarantine and then come back here to do quarantine again, I would have gone home. Because I could have done a lot of what I did on, as I said, on the computer. And whoever wanted me in the studio would have to have waited until I got back here. But I can't bother with all this quarantine stuff. So I just stayed.
Yeah.
I feel you, man. I feel you.
I know exactly what you mean there.
Yep.
I know exactly what you mean there.
I'm getting stuff pushed up your nostrils every minute. No, I can't bother with that.
I had that. I absolutely hate that. The whole up your nose thing. I don't know how some people that have like the Olympics going on think they're being tested very regularly. I
think it's
honestly
every day.
don't. How I don't understand how you can do that every day and something isn't happening with your nose or something, because it's the most uncomfortable thing ever.
Yeah.
And I bet you felt. I bet you were very proud seeing your compatriots yesterday in that 100-meter, Mikey.
Very much so. I have a little map to show you guys.
Okay.
Hope you can see it.
Oh. Yes.
It's the medals table for the last 4 Olympics. Silver, gold, bronze.
Yes.
So only
No, it's
2
good.
American flags and the rest is all Jamaica.
Oh,
Yeah.
indeed.
Fascinating. Yeah.
So you can imagine how proud I am.
Of course. And you should be,
And
rightfully so.
Rightfully
Absolutely.
so, for sure. You know?
So, excellent. So look, there's the book.
Yeah.
Let's before we get into the book, because I think it's really important that we help our audience to understand how this all came about. And I know that you've told this story many times. You know, it was a break last summer during the test series between West Indies and England. Rain was falling. Sky showed a piece between yourself and Ebony Rainford Brent looking at racism. And you were asked for some comments. So I'll let you pick it up from there, Mikey.
Well, as you know, the entire thing started with the murder of George Floyd. I was still in the Caribbean when that took place. I was still at home, and Ebony Rainford Brent had just recently joined the Sky broadcast. And of course, they had this Sky meeting on Zoom, of course, because it was heavy COVID times. And they asked her how she felt about it and the marches and whether she had gone to protest and that sort of thing. And Ebony basically broke down crying during that meeting.
Wow.
And our boss at Sky Cricket, Brian Henderson, decided, hey, this thing's a little bit emotional. We can't just brush it over like this. We have to do something a bit more than that. So he called me at home and said they intended to do this video with Ebony, talking about her life and her experiences, and if I would be willing to do one as well. So I said, absolutely, no problem. So that was a video that was produced before I actually spoke live. And that was basically what it was supposed to be, that video, and then a short comment, because as you know, we should have gone to live cricket. But there was no live cricket. It started to rain. And then Ian Ward looked at me and said to me, well, Mikey, how do you feel, or how did you feel about looking straight down at camera and talking about things like that? And of course, I just started.
Yes.
That thing has been inside of me for decades. The way I feel about this racism thing and the way I feel about how I have been treated and people of my ethnicity have been treated over so many years. So it was easy for me. Some of the facts that I brought out was something that I had learned in the last, say, 5-10 years. Because if you had asked me 10 years ago, 15 years ago to talk about it, I wouldn't have known all that stuff. But my broadcast career has allowed me to do a lot more reading than when I was just a cricketer and just going through life. Because when you're doing broadcasting and you're traveling all over the world, number one, you have a lot of time on airplanes. It takes a lot of hours to get to Australia.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of hours to get to South Africa.
Yeah.
And you can't just sleep and eat. So you do a bit of reading. And then even when you're in those countries, you get home from the day job doing your broadcasting during the cricketing hours, you might spend a bit of time with your friends, the guys that you work with and that sort of thing. But at my age, the last 10, 15 years, I haven't been going to discos and bars and that sort of thing, as you know. So you go to your room.
I don't know.
I'm telling you guys.
We feel you, Mikey.
And you read.
Yeah.
So I was able to garner a lot of information. And plus, I have a lot of friends who know my interests. And whenever they come across a story, they'll WhatsApp me the story. And I've got more and more of these since I started to actually write the book. So a lot of the information that I got in and went into the book, of course, you have to research it. You can't just take something that somebody sends to you and you think that is gospel. So you do the research and you realize, hey, this is a serious story here. And so that is how all that got into the book. But that morning at Southampton, it just flowed. Authors said to me afterwards, you spoke for over 4 minutes without an interruption. I said, no, I didn't know that. I have no idea how long I had spoken for.
Yeah. At the very beginning of the book, in the preface on page 5, you say this. I'll try to do it in your voice.
Why?
I want to be clear. This is not a book of complaints.
Yes.
It is a book of facts. I hope it will enlighten, inspire, surprise, shock, and move. So what stuck out for me, this is not a book of complaints. Why do you feel you had to say that?
Well, because I don't want people to think that it's just another angry black man complaining or angry black people complaining, because a lot of people in the book gave their story and spoke about some weird incidents that they had in their lives and the maltreatment or ill treatment that they got. So I don't want people to think, and one person already made that comment. As I said to you, I've done so many, interviews and that sort of thing, and lots of guests on these Zoom calls. And one person, I won't tell you where he's from, but I think he might be able to guess. I go there and do cricket sometimes. Made the comment that, do you not think this could be looked upon as just more racism from the other direction?
Wow.
So I had to ask him, what racism are you talking about? These are just facts that people are quoting, and these are stories that people are telling you of their life. So how can this be racism in the other direction? But a lot of people don't actually know what racism is. Because I have Jamaicans, brown-skinned Jamaicans telling me, they have experienced reverse racism. There is no reverse racism.
No.
Racism goes in one direction, because racism is one race believing that they're superior to another race. I've never heard a person of color, black, brown, whatever, ever say that they think they are superior to another race, especially to the whites. So they don't quite understand what racism is. So you cannot have a reverse racism situation. You can have prejudice, where a black man can be so prejudiced against a white man because of the history, and he hates that white man. But that's not racism, and they need to understand that.
True. No, that's really true.
There's the power dynamic in the relationship that people always sort of gloss over when we talk about racism.
Yes, they don't. You see, they don't want to understand.
No, I agree. Guys on Facebook, if you're watching and they say, I think some people are saying that the comments has been, disabled or what have you. Jump on YouTube, all the comments in there. You guys can do that, and we can get your stuff on screen as well. Your questions or anything at all. Join the discussion if you have any questions at all for us or for Mikey as well. Go ahead, Mark. You're going to jump in.
I was going to stay at the front end of the book, because the book is dedicated to your mom, Mikey, and you talk about her quite passionately during the opening of the book, and I think it's important for people to understand that relationship in your family, how your mom was treated, and some of the emotions around it. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, well, my mom was pretty much ostracized by her family when she married my father, because as you can see, I'm pretty dark. And my mother was a fair-skinned Jamaican, not white, but a brown-skinned Jamaican. So I am as dark as I am. You know how dark my father would have to have been. And then her family decided, you marrying this black man, you're not one of us, you know.
Right.
And that is her, like uncles, aunts, that sort of thing. Her brothers and her sisters, not a problem. And all of them were brown skin, but absolutely not a problem. They were always around us. We were always, you see, as a young man, I didn't even know what was going on with my mother's family. You know. I was unaware because our brothers and sisters were always around. Now we had a happy family. Christmas time, fantastic. All of us visiting each other's house, exchanging presents, big Christmas lunch in one house or the other. We so many people who can't all sit around the dining table, that sort of thing. So we had a happy life. But that was my mother shielding me from the true situation. Because even when I made that comment on Sky, my sisters got in touch with me. The older one in particular, Mike, we didn't know you knew about that. Because it was never ever discussed. They didn't know that I knew. But I only found that out much later on in life. When I was in my 30s, I found that out. And that is why I dedicated this book to my mother. Because I can just imagine what she went through. And that incident that I related in the book in New York when I was a kid, probably 12, 13 years old, and she waking me up in the morning to show me two kids in somebody else's backyard, a black and a white kid playing together, and waking me up, 12, 13 years old, and saying to me, Mike, you have a chance, look at this.
We got a chance.
So you know it must have been in her mind all these years, all this time, for her to say something like that when she saw the black and white kid playing. But she was a good woman, believe me. She kept it from me in particular. The elder ones knew. I was the last in the family, and the elder ones knew about it. But she made sure that it did not affect our family, and she did her best to make sure everything was great.
Yeah. That's fantastic. The book itself, and we know we had the conversation that you had on Sky, you did the video and what's not. But from there, what prompted you to say, I need to write a book, I need to write something on this? There's more I want to say, and I want to put it in this format.
Well, for want of a better word, it was pressure from outside. Or for want of a better
That's fair.
I did not intend to write a book. I had no intentions of going any further than to what I said on Sky that morning. And of course, I had so much reaction and positive reaction from so many people. The first person to get in touch with me was Thierry Henry. It wasn't even that morning. It wasn't the first day. It was the second day when I went on Sky News with Mark Austin. And he saw me break down on TV. And he was a pundit, soccer pundit on Sky. So he got in touch with the Sky offices and said, listen, I need Michael Holding's number. I need to call him. So when I got back to the commentary box after talking to Mark Austin, Brian Henderson again, my boss at Sky Cricket, said to me, I hope you don't mind, but Thierry Henry asked for your number and we gave it to him. I was overjoyed. Thierry Henry going to call me. I watched this man playing football and this man just dazzled me with his skills.
Yes, man.
Absolutely brilliant.
Brilliant, yeah.
And he's going to call me. So I say, oh, what? So I'm waiting on this call. Obviously, I don't have his number in my phone, but a number comes up and I don't identify. I answered quick. So we had this discussion, and one of the things he said to me, he said, boy, Mikey, I feel your pain. And we had a talk about his experiences in France and all that sort of thing. And his parents are Caribbean. One is from Guadeloupe, one is from Martinique.
Yes.
And then, of course, he grew up in France. And he was there telling me his experiences and all that. And then he said to me, we have to meet, we have to talk. But again, that is during COVID. So there's absolutely no chance of us getting together. But I thought to myself, after next year, after COVID, maybe we can meet up in London or something like that. And that is where I ended it. Then people started to get in touch. Naomi Osaka got in touch saying, oh, I need to talk to this man. And lots of positive feedback from all over the world. South Africa, India, Australia. And the amount of people kept on coming to me and saying, you can't stop here. You can't stop. I don't see myself going on the podium on the platform and talking about racism. I say what I have to say. But then I decided, you know what? I have to. And that is why I decided to do this book. And again, immediately I got back in touch with Thierry and said, Thierry, I'm going to do this book. Would you be happy to be involved? And I said, absolutely. And as you see, so many people got involved afterwards. It wasn't difficult for me to get Usain Bolt. You know, Jamaican, if you tell me no, I stone him.
I agree. And I somehow feel you with it too. Quick question: did Thierry Henry know who you were?
Yeah, he knew Thierry Henry. He knows cricket. As I say, he's a Caribbean man, and he knows cricket. And if you note in the book, he says that he had another West Indian friend who's a big Arsenal fan, who is big on cricket and kept on telling him about the West Indies team. So he knew about me.
Yeah. Wow.
Remy says, look, yes, Remy, it is unaudible.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Book, yes, that was released on July 22nd, actually.
Yes, and Mikey narrated it himself. So yes.
Yeah,
and you started there to talk about some of the people who you spoke to. So let's just remind our audience of just some of the people who informed why we kneel and how we rise. You can see there on the screen.
Yeah, and they were great. Believe me, they gave up their time, you know. And you're seeing the athletes there. You know, Ibtihaj Muhammad, she went through a lot because she's a woman, she's black, she's Muslim. Living in America, trying to perform. So, you know, all of them have their issues that they have been through, but they have slightly different stories to some degree as well. You know, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But one person that I had to get, which was very important for the book, because my book, as far as I'm concerned, I'm trying to educate people, was the headmaster, Jeff Harriet.
Yes, Jeff Harriet.
British
from Manchester.
School, Manchester. Headmaster was school in Manchester. He got in touch with me long before I decided to do this book through the ECB. He sent an email to the ECB and asked them to forward it to me, talking about what I had said on television, and long email. And when I decided to do this book, I said, no, well, I have to be in touch with this gentleman. He can offer a lot because this is about education. He's a headmaster. He's talking about the possibility of changing the curriculum at his school. So I needed to get him involved. And we were on Zoom for about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And what I really, really like is how you took time. You took, as easy a read or listen as it was, what really impressed me is how you took time to not just understand their stories, but also do a bit of a history lesson in some portions as well. And the chapter or the area that you wrote around which dehumanization. It was probably one of the hardest reads, listens of any, and I read a lot of stuff on this kind of, but it's just the way how you put it together on the dehumanization. I think you said it's in 3 acts: the pre thing of dehumanization, and then slavery, and then this talking about United States, and then the Jim Crow era, and the importance of the Jim Crow era and the United States and how Black people are viewed worldwide. That was really important to see. Why do you think it was important to really walk us through that?
Because, gents, everybody keep on telling you about, oh, that was a long time ago. That's what they keep on saying. Look from when slavery ended. Look from when human rights in America in the 60s and the signing of the Declaration with JFK and what was the president's name again?
Johnson.
Don't remember. You know, why can't you forget that and move on? Well, I needed to show people that it didn't end with the signature on a document. All it did was change the way they enslaved the Black people in America in particular. And that is why you needed to see the chain gang situation, the Jim Crow situation. Can you imagine you're going to tell people, oh, yes, you can vote. But in order to vote, you have to do these tests. How many seeds in a watermelon? Come on. And you tell me that's freedom? Every man is now considered equal. You lift or abolish slavery. But the slaves can't work because it was against the law to teach them to read and write. So what job is he going to get? And if he can't get a job, then you lock him up and put him in jail and then rent him out back to the same slave masters. People need to understand and to know these things. So don't tell me about this a long time ago and pull yourself up by your bootstraps and all that rubbish. You don't even have any boots, much less bootstraps. So that is why I had to put in those things. And when you talk about the chapter being hard to read, you know, I send these chapters, I sent them to my family as I was going along. My two sisters older than me. One will be 18 in October, one is 78 already in June. And when I sent the dehumanization stuff to them, they said they're not reading it. They started to read it and tell me, Mikey, don't send back anything like this. I can't read it. Because they know about it.
Yeah.
And they don't want to go back through that again.
Yeah, I think it was
to be done.
Yeah. It was really important, right? Because quite often when it comes to transatlantic slavery, you know, you have that conversation. People will say, but there was slavery all over. You know, there were slaves. They would say, well, the Africans also had slavery in Africa. You know, there was slavery with the Arabs and the Africans as well.
Yeah.
You know, there was constantly slavery and indentured servitude, these sort of things. But my thought on that is slavery actually wasn't it was a crime, but it wasn't the heinous crime. The real crime was the dehumanization.
That is it.
The actual bringing into law that Black people are lesser. That is the actual thing that we have to address when we talk about that period of time. That wasn't very long ago.
Slavery is going on right now, Philip. And the gentleman mentioned that to me about slavery. You know, I said to him, we're not talking about slavery. We're talking about the transatlantic slave trade and what happened to those people. Slavery is going on right now. But the transatlantic slave trade and the dehumanization of the Black man during that period, they used even so-called doctors with their so-called theories of Black people not even feeling pain the way white people feel pain, and Black people's skulls smaller so that not as bright. All this was considered brilliant work by these doctors then. And as I said to a gentleman the other day, those were quacks, those weren't doctors, but they are still revered in today's world.
Absolutely.
And it's those four things that work together: law, because it was codified. You know, you have the laws that dehumanize African people of African descent. There was science that worked there as well. There was economics. There was an economic benefit, and there was religion. If those four forces are working together,
as the ultimate propaganda.
And what people need to understand is not just a matter of you taking advantage of another set of people. You know, slavery, yes, but this transatlantic slave trade was different from any other slavery. And when you mention indentured slaves, Philip, a gentleman sent me a Mickey Mouse article. This is a gentleman that I've been arguing about this thing for a long, long while. So he thought he had something on me and sent me this article about Cromwell enslaving the Irish and sending them to the Caribbean. They were not slaves. It is a fallacy that the Irish were slaves. They were indentured laborers, and they earned their freedom in 4, 5, or 6 years. That is not slavery.
No.
The slaves never earned their freedom.
Well, there's I used to live in Northern Ireland. I've done a lot of reading on that particular issue there. There's a book called To Hell or Barbados, where it talks about the indentured servants were Barbadosed, is what there was even a verb. Barbados became a verb for that case.
Wow.
And of course, there was also a bit of dehumanization happening there as well. But the Irish were able to recover over time, and there's still loads of tension between English and Irish people. You know, Northern Ireland is testimony to that. But there's something so significant that goes beyond that, and I don't want this to be about trading atrocities and comparing atrocities.
Which was worse.
It's that we all have to come together and recognize we're all affected by this. You know, Black and white, we are affected by this, and we are disadvantaged by it. You know,
absolutely. One of the things, Mikey, that I found really courageous with you and the writing of the book is you were very hard on helping England to recognize this is not an American problem, because up to this week I heard somebody say something like that. People are very quick in England to say America is very different. That's happening over there. Those things don't happen here. People are still saying that today, and I love that you went in on that particular point, and I know it had to take some courage too.
Mark, you obviously don't watch me on Sky when I talk. I have no problem in speaking the truth. If I step on a man's toe, that's his problem. The truth is the truth. And if England want to believe that those things don't happen here, well, all as I said, they'll just have to read my book. I gave them quite a few examples. A woman getting a heart attack, they go for this woman to deport her. She gets a heart attack, she's on the floor, and they just leave her there to die. But even more recent times, the young man Lawrence that was stabbed to death, how long did it take for them to arrest the perpetrators, and how many of them really were found guilty? And the commission report that came out after that, I don't remember who did it, Lord somebody. He came back with a report that said the Met was institutionally racist.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is not me talking. I just reporting what they say.
Yeah. It took nearly 20 years to convict 2 people.
Exactly.
Over 20 years. And the funny story about that is that when I first moved to the UK, I ended up living 2 bus stops from where he got killed.
We got some stories about that.
I didn't know. I was at the bus stop late one night, and I think you guys came down and we went walking late at night around that very same area. And I have no idea what had happened 3-4 years before.
Now, Mikey, the reason I said you're courageous is because I think a lot of people feel these things but don't say these things, okay? Because they feel as though if I stick my neck out, I could be easily victimized, or people can come after me. So I know you're going to speak the truth, absolutely. But when I was listening to it, I felt, man, this is so courageous, but it's very inspirational, because it's for people like me and Andre and Philip. It is for us to take on that courage, because if we don't speak up, things will just carry on. So that's why I said this is courageous stuff, man. Really courageous.
As I said in the book, Mark, I identified why they don't want us to talk. They want to keep it silent so that things can continue. But I don't find my experiences here in England that tough. I don't find a lot of individual people on the streets are like that. I think it is more institutionalized and systemic, this racism.
Yeah.
I have had so many great experiences since I've written this book, or since I came on Sky, or since I came on Good Morning Britain program that morning. People see me, they don't know me. They just see me and recognize me, and they will shout to me, "But Mike, you like what I hear you saying on Sky, or you know what you're saying," that sort of thing. A gentleman and his wife popped a note through my letterbox. I don't know these people. They popped a note through my letterbox telling me that they watch me on Good Morning Britain, and I have opened their eyes and they are thanking me. Don't know the people, but they put their address on it, neighbors, close neighbors. And I walked around to the house afterwards to thank them and to say hello. And that is the general feeling and the general reaction that I'm getting from the ordinary people on the street.
No,
but
no,
as I was reading it, because not that you are an old man, but
I am.
You're gonna start there, Philip.
As you're a man that go to church regularly and you know about the Bible, you know the good Lord give you 70.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, if that is all He has given me, I only have 3 years left.
You got. Let's hope not.
So I am no youth.
But my mother always used to say that 70 and the rest is by the grace of God. So
exactly.
You might have loads of grace.
That they're playing the grace.
Yeah. But what I was gonna say is, all the sport sports stars, the athletes that you've interviewed are quite young people, like Naomi Osaka, etc. And it feels as though when you're writing, you have a little bit of admiration for them
Yeah.
as
For
this
sure.
next generation coming up. But I also sense a tinge of almost regret
Yeah.
from you as well, that back in the 80s and 90s when we were facing this thing, we use our bats and balls, but we didn't use our voice. Is
So true.
Is that the sentiment that you have? Do you really have this sort of regret in the back of your mind as you wrote
Sort
this?
of, Philip. Sort of, and I say sort of because that is all in theory. Because I know in practice, if I had said anything or spoke now those days, I probably wouldn't be talking to you guys now. I probably wouldn't have had as long a cricket career. I wouldn't have had a television career. I wouldn't have gotten to the platform that I have now. We have seen it through history.
Yeah.
Black people speak out, they are ostracized. They just disappear. And not even, you don't have to go back too long, Colin Kaepernick, one of the guys that's a picture on the front of the book.
Yeah.
Recently, he didn't even speak out. He just decided to take a knee. Went down on his knee during the national anthem. And you see, he was kicked out of the NFL. At the end of that season, he never got another job.
Never worked again.
But when you look at, you have so many different people in America that do not recognize the American flag. Do not recognize it. And nobody says anything to them. Why? They don't have dark skin.
Yeah.
And that is the problem. That is the problem. So I can theoretically say, I have regrets about not talking up earlier. But in real practice, I know if I had spoken up earlier, I wouldn't have had the career that I had.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting what you
Has
said.
anyone ever seen a Mormon recognize the American flag or the national anthem? They don't. They do not recognize it. You have tons of Mormons in America, but not a problem.
It's interesting because that gets played out as well, just in every day, because even as recently as these Olympics, and we see what Simone Biles is going through, before her, so many, and as well Naomi Osaka, before those two, so many sports people have talked about their mental health and having to take time out and whatnot. Triscothet in cricket, now we see Ben Stokes again, and that kind of stuff. But the only time it's become, oh Lord, not mental health again, is all of a sudden when two black girls talk about it. So what's
and
the
Mr.
issue?
Pierce Morgan jumps in.
Pierce Morgan jump in. I didn't see him jumping on Ben Stokes. I never see him jumping on Triscothet when Triscothet left the the Ashes, in the middle of the Ashes or something, and say, I need to go home.
Or to Jonathan Trott.
Or to Trot and what's not. Never jumped in. But Simone Biles and Naomi Osaka, all of a sudden, oh no, they couldn't hack it and tired of this mental health conversation.
They're weak.
I'm like, what? and I think
embarrassment, man.
And I think that's how you see things. And I think in the book you mentioned about how people are socialized through propaganda, through the dawning of the printing press, as you say, in pre-days.
Brainwash.
Or brainwash. And how it's normalized to see black people as the other. Explain the concept of the other for me, because I thought that was a real interesting part as well that you talked about.
Again, you have to go back in history and see exactly what they did. You see, in order to subjugate a set of people, you have to make them feel inferior. And you have to make the people that are doing the subjugating, you have to make your people feel as if when you're doing all this evil, it's no big thing. These people, not really people. So there's no conscience about doing whatever you're doing. You don't do something, it's like you step on an ant. You don't feel bad about stepping on an ant. The ant is insignificant.
Good point.
That is what they did from in history. That is why these pseudoscientists came together to declare that the black man was inferior and it was no big thing to do whatever you want to do to them. The story of the ship, the slave ship that was stranded, and they threw the slaves overboard. When they got back to England, they claimed insurance for cargo. It went to court, and the lawyer was saying straight up, these are not human beings. This is cargo. They insured their cargo and lost their cargo, so they have to collect the insurance money, and the court paid out. Or not the court paid out, but the court instructed the insurance company to pay out.
Yeah.
So that is how they structured it from a long time ago. Yeah. And so we became other, not human, not equal, just other, whatever other is. And once they got to that level, it was easy for them then to do what they did. The Berlin Conference, when they divided up Africa, because they did not want to be fighting over territory amongst themselves, they went to Berlin and sat down. Germany, you can take that. England, you can take that. France, you can take that. Belgium, you can take that. It's like dividing up marbles.
Yeah.
And their conscience had to get to the point where it didn't mean anything. That is why they structured it that way and get the so-called scientists involved.
And while obviously that would have inflicted a huge trauma on the black people, and we can see that, the concept of it being traumatic to the descendants of those people as well, that seems never to get through when you speak about it, that the trauma goes both ways. And you took some time to talk about that as well.
Because it has to be explained. It's like post-traumatic trauma. The people go to war and they fight war, they come back alive. But what they went through affects them for the rest of their life. That's the same thing. During slavery, they destroyed the family unit.
Yeah.
Totally destroyed the family unit. You weren't allowed, if you and your wife or your mate, because they didn't call it wife, were taken together. When you landed wherever you went, you were sold separately to destroy that family unit. And even if you are on a slave plantation and you then have a lady that's now becoming your mate or wife or whatever on that plantation, they found a way to again divide you. Because they didn't want that family unit to blossom. Now, if you are destroying the family unit of a race every time, after the abolition of slavery, which wasn't really abolished, it can't just come back together and everybody's mind just click back together as normally. Because if you are living in a household and every day you see your father beat your mother, you're going to think that's normal. Until you go somewhere else and visit your friends or whatever and you see his parents or her parents acting normally and loving and whatever, then you think to yourself, which one is normal? So if you are growing up under that, because slavery didn't last 2 or 3 years,
True.
and after slavery didn't last another 2 or 3 years, and they're constantly dividing and destroying the family unit, how do you think it just gets back natural and normal again? It can't. It takes a very, very long time because the trauma is still there.
Yeah.
Adam Good spoke about it. When they divided up his family,
Australia.
they came in Australia. Sorry, for those who don't know the book and don't know the story.
Yes.
Adam Goods, an indigenous Australian, played AFL for Australia, retired in his 20s because of victimization and racism. He talks about them taking his mother. Soldiers or police or whatever, people of power, coming in and dragging his mother out from under the bed and destroying that family. Because what they were trying to do was to assimilate, as they say, the indigenous people into Australia, into the Australian way of life and everything.
Yeah.
Now that affected him throughout his life.
Yeah.
That affected his mother, obviously, because that's the last time his mother saw her mother. And then, of course, it overflowed into him. He obviously wasn't anywhere around when that happened. His mother was a child. But yet, when his mother grew up and then had him, it still affected him.
Of course. Yeah.
What I really found, again, particularly insightful in the book, Mikey, was, we talk a lot about dehumanization and the hard area of the book. But there's some beautiful learning points when you talk about inoculations. The first black person to go to I think it was the North Pole, Lewis Howard Latimer. People who we have never heard about in our history growing up. Tell us a little bit about that part of the book, actually.
Well, as I said, it is about education, and that's why I needed to put a lot of those things into the book. Because the plan is, or was from the very beginning, don't give these people role models. Don't let them believe that they have been great people from their race. Don't give them people to emulate. So whatever people have done in the past, we're going to airbrush it out of history. We ain't teaching them those things. Lewis Howard Latimer, as you mentioned, he is the man who invented the carbon filament to make these fluorescent lights burn and burn and burn and burn. Thomas Edison, yes, you can definitely say he invented the light bulb, but his light bulb didn't work. It was non-functional because he had a paper filament. And as you know, as paper heats, it burns. So you'll be changing a light bulb every 2 minutes. But for the carbon filament, you wouldn't have what we have now. He went on to light the streets of New York. Who knows about that?
Wow.
You mentioned the inoculation. It was a slave who introduced that to the Western world.
Yeah.
A gentleman by the name of Onesimus. He was a slave in Boston. Smallpox was ravaging the place. He went to his master, and his master was a pastor, by the way. So we talk about religion and slavery. His master was a pastor. He went to him and said, listen, this is what we do in Africa. This is what I have learned in Africa to treat this thing. You cut a healthy person, get some of the pus from the unhealthy person, from the smallpox, and just add it to that person's cut so that it goes into their body in a small dose, so that their body identifies this thing as a foreigner and attacks it, and then builds the resistance against it. So that when the real thing comes, it is already there. We know you. We go fight you. You're not coming here. That is inoculation. But yet, nobody talks about Onesimus. They talk about the English doctor who came 50 odd years later on and did the experiment with smallpox and cowpox. The first man to step on the North Pole, a black man. Nobody talks about him.
No.
He was not recognized until the man that they say actually did it died.
I never knew that story.
Then died, they buried him. This man that they said did it, went to the North Pole first. Big hullabaloo and big statue and all kind of thing. All they did with the man who actually did it was bury him beside him. And then, tell me, by the way, everybody goes on the street and says traffic lights.
The traffic lights, yeah.
It's a black man invented the first three-way traffic light, red, amber, and green. The black man did that, invented that. A black man invented masks, gas masks. And when he invented them, he was going around selling them. He had a white man fronting it because everybody knew that if he fronted it, they wouldn't use it and wouldn't buy it.
Yeah.
And a lot of that took place throughout history. A lot.
Yeah. And I felt... Sorry, go ahead, Ray.
No, I was going to say, but even fast forward now, because one of the things, and like you guys will hear me say all the time, one of the things that I always hate, even during this period now of COVID-19, is how we are always portrayed as, the victims that need to be helped, but never anyone who's actually trying to help solve the problem as well. And, you've got many Black, brown doctors who are out there being part of the vaccine creation, the scientists behind it. But on television, all you see are Caucasian doctors talking about what they're doing. And the only time you see us is to say, oh, we're being very impacted, which goes back to what you said at the beginning of the book of this is not a book of complaints, but for people to understand what is actually happening and what has happened. Even today, you still see it. We didn't contribute to any of the vaccines. We're just the people that need it, despite the fact that, yes, we are the people that need it, but you took time to talk about that in the book too as to why.
Exactly why. Because a low resistance, that means you get it easier. And what we had to go through has created that low resistance that we have. But in America, though, I'll give them credit for this. They did actually talk about a black doctor and actually showed her on television that was involved in the Pfizer vaccine.
Dr. Kizzy, I think she is on Facebook.
I don't remember her name, but I remember seeing her. But at the time, I skeptical me, call me whatever. I saw her and I thought to myself, oh, they put her up because they want black people to take this vaccine.
But partly that, but she was actually very, very. I know who you mean.
Yes,
she was very much involved.
Actually involved big time in producing the Pfizer vaccine.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
You're gonna add something, Mark?
Yeah, I think that whole area of the book, Mikey, I found very educational. Really, really teaching people things that they need to know. That, you know, as people in the audience said, me airbrushed out. And there was one name, Mary Seacole, that you also took some time to explain.
Florence Nightingale,
yeah, because she had been getting a fight because people were trying to compare her to Florence Nightingale and saying, oh, Mary Seacole, she was no Florence Nightingale, and trying to downplay what she did. Everybody knows that Mary Seacole was no Florence Nightingale. Mary Seacole was not a medical nurse going around and treating people and giving them injections. So she was not that. She was a woman who visited war zones to comfort people and to do whatever she could do to make them feel better about their injuries and whatever like that. Yeah. And nobody was ever trying to compare, at least nobody from that I know about was trying to compare Mary Seacole to Florence Nightingale and saying she was better than Florence Nightingale or anything like that. But because the powers that be just want to push anything like that into the background. But they did not succeed because there is a statue of Mary Seacole in London on one of the bridges. I don't remember which bridge it is, but there's a statue of her there. But you'll always find people trying to be negative. You have a lot of good people in it. A lot of good people trying to get this thing moving and trying to get equality and trying to get things happening. But you'll always have some people that just don't want change, don't want to see anything good come of this. So they're always trying to tug at little things. But the Mary Seacole statue is there. And I know about Mary Seacole from I was a little boy. When my sister did medicine, and I remember as a kid again, young teenager dropping her off at University of the West Indies, she went into Mary Seacole Hall. Because the hall at UWI was called Mary Seacole for medicine.
Yeah.
But the thing is that is really, I don't want to say annoying because it's more than annoying, but I use that for the lack of a better word.
Frustrating?
Frustrating is there too, but I might jump out the character and put in a few expletives and think that's how annoying it is. So is people don't see even the fight of today as connected to the white supremacy ideology. And the moment you mention that, everyone gets their back up. And I think this is what goes back. I always go back to the trauma goes both ways, is we recognize and talk about ours, but that's why you keep thinking that we're complaining. You refuse to recognize yours and understand how it impacts your decision making today. Yeah. You know, how the African soldiers and Caribbean soldiers, it took how long for them to be recognized here in the UK after fighting in the First and Second World Wars. It took forever for them to be
after the animals, they were recognized.
Exactly. And that was one that when you said it, and again, this is why Audible is good, right? Because I might have read that and gone over it. But to hear you say and enunciate it in that way, even though I knew it, it brought it home to me. The fact that the British recognized the animals first in the world, in the wars, with statues and all kind of stuff, before they recognized the African and West Indian soldiers. And it came like 20, 30 years after.
Yep.
But they recognized the dog and the horses and the cow and the sheep and all kind of thing before
the donkeys, everything.
Before they recognized the African and West Indian soldiers. And when you said that, I was like, oh my God, even though you kind of knew it, just to hear and see it, it really riled me up a bit listening to that part.
And the thing is, Andre, where they where they how and where they recognize the animals is a lot more prominent than where they recognize Africans and the Caribbean soldiers. Because the animals, Hyde Park, everybody go past Hyde Park. That is a regular haunt. They put the African and Caribbean soldiers down in Brixton.
Down in Brixton.
It's as if to say, it's your people, so take them down there.
Where only we could see.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Everything is done for a purpose.
It
And
definitely
same
is.
thing in America. The American soldiers, they were never allowed to join the parade. No, the entire war story is horrific. When the black American soldiers went to fight, the white American soldiers didn't want to fight with them, so they went and fought for the French. Can you imagine that?
Wow.
Yeah, and they recognize prominently from the French.
They got all kind of awards.
Yeah.
But yet, at the end of the war, the French were told not to let them join the parade amongst them either, because they were back in America. They were not going to let them join the parade in America, and there's no way the French were going to be allowed to let them join them. So again, get rid of them. We have done what we need to do with them. They are fought. They have thousands have died, but whatever. We can put them back in the background. And that is what hurt so many people again in that era, because they were willing to give their lives for what they thought was their country. But at the end of it all, you don't count.
Yeah. How did it make you feel as you were researching the book and going through all this history?
Not
I'm
nice,
sure some
believe
you
me.
knew and some you didn't. How did it make you feel?
Andre, it was rough. As I tell you, some of those chapters were not easy to write. They were not easy to write. And that's why my sisters did not want to read them, because they didn't want to be reminded. But as I said, these things had to be told. That you can't keep on hiding things like this forever. Because as I said, this is about educating people. Because there was a set of people, the white supremacy thing is people growing up believing that they're superior. And then you have black people growing up believing that they're inferior. And we need to educate everybody to show that we're all human beings. You cut all of us is the same red blood coming out.
Yeah.
And that's why I dealt with the origination of man as well in the book. All mankind started in Africa. Who want to believe it? They don't want to believe it. They can do the research and come and prove me wrong. All mankind started in Africa. And when people started to move around the globe, they adapted to the conditions under which they started to live. That is why white people became white. Less sun, you don't need as much melanin in your skin to protect you.
Over time,
Even the Chinese, they at one point believed that they were totally separate. And it was proven that everything started in Africa.
Yeah.
An article was written in the Beijing Times in 2013, May 2013 or something like that. All these things in my head, but so much in there, I don't remember all the
That's what we're
dates and
telling
all
everybody. Go get the book. Go get the book.
Yeah.
The Chinese scientists did their DNA tests and did whatever, and they concluded as well that it all started in Africa.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I want to come to the statement "sport is life," and I'll tell you what I want to talk about that. You said that in one of your chapters, "Sport is life." For example, the kneeling of the England
and the
England team
stuff,
and so on before games was booed, and quite often people will be saying, "Focus on football, play football. You're just footballers. You're just sportsmen. Stop making this political
statement.
that sort of thing." But they still did it, right? Because as you say, so I want you to talk about sport is life. But the second thing I want you to sort of talk about is, I guess it's coming back to that voice of the young sports person. Has something changed that allows people to be more vocal this day than let's say 30, 40 years ago?
I definitely think so. I'll start with that first, because that is what gives me hope. I think the atmosphere has changed tremendously over the last, I wouldn't even go back as far as a decade. I would say the last 4 to 5 years, the atmosphere has changed a lot. In that people now feel more secure in talking out, that they won't be victimized as they were years ago. Kaepernick is an exception, yes, because he came up in the Trump era. And, that's a different thing altogether. But I think in more recent times, people think And it has been shown that they are a lot more acceptable whenever they talk, if they talk sense, of course, and they come out with facts.
Interesting.
I read an article recently where a bank, there was a gentleman of color in the bank who went around the bank, big multinational bank, writing to people of color that he knew in the bank, asking them their experiences and whatever. And then, of course, he made sure that all his findings came out in an article in a newspaper. And the gentleman who wrote the article, because he must have given the interview to somebody and provided all the responses and all that. The gentleman who wrote the article said, if this had happened 10 years ago, he would have lost his job. But because of the change in the atmosphere and the entire thing that's going on now, the movement and people recognizing that things aren't right, the bank itself decided that they need to look at this gentleman's findings and to try and do something about it. And they vowed, no, we're talking about jobs being high up for people of color. They vowed that they would change the percentage by a certain time. If it's 1%, they vowed like so they'd change to 3% or whatever. It was a lower number still in it. But it was movement in the right direction. And as the gentleman said, if this had happened 10 years ago, he would have lost his job. They would have just fired him and just carried on as they were doing before. But things are changing. And as you see, companies in the US in particular have dedicated and ring-fenced millions of dollars towards programs to try to level the playing field, because they recognize that the playing field was heavily slanted. When you talk about redlining of districts to make sure people can't get loans to better their homes and all that sort of thing, and the statistics are there, how much more better off white families are than black families because of redlining, nothing else, because of redlining. Because white people could go to banks, get loans, even if they're not improving their property with those loans, they then use those monies to send their kids to university.
Use the collateral.
Black folks couldn't get money to do anything, not even to fix their kitchen, much less to send people to university. So that was some of the things that they were doing to keep black families down. And I made an example. Philip, you have to remind me of the first part. But I made
we get there, we come back.
Yeah, I made an example in the book as well, that while I was writing that book, there was a story in the newspapers of a family in Florida. 2019 October, somewhere around there, or 2020 October. I don't remember when it was.
2020.
It might have been 2020. Mixed family, black woman, white man, had a kid, of course, biracial kid. They invited someone in to do an assessment of their house, to value the house, because they wanted to remortgage. The gentleman came in, everybody was there, all normal house, they didn't do anything, and valued the house. And I think they valued the house at like $340,000 US dollars. And the wife said, honey, talking to her husband, of course, this don't look so right here. I know people in this very same road that their valuation is higher than this. Let us give it another shot. And she decided then to take everything out of the house that would make it look like a black person lived there. She took down the Barack Obama and her family pictures. She took out all the books by black authors. She took out all the family pictures that included her or her son or her family. Left only pictures of her husband's family and her husband in the house, and anything that would suggest a black person lived in the house was taken out. Invited another person to come and value the house. It was valued at $135,000 more.
Crying.
Wow.
Yeah.
It ain't easy.
No.
Yeah.
But that's real impact to you being able to have upward mobility through the equity in your house, right?
Yes, definitely.
And that's how it impacts real on people.
Yeah.
Definitely. And they're talking about people working hard and getting better. That is not for everybody.
No.
And generational wealth is the important thing we're talking about, that people progressing.
Yes.
And if that is happening to you every day, there's no way you're going to grow that generational wealth.
No.
And I gave an example in the book again, which is going back many years now, not a year or two ago, where there were people were going to banks, getting monies to buy big lots of land or big acres of land to build houses, lots of houses. And one of the stipulations that the bank gave them was they could not sell to black people. You're not getting this loan if you're going to sell any of these houses to black people. And it was written on the lease, not on the lease, the title. No blacks. So how do you grow generational wealth? How do you progress as a family? You're fighting against all those things.
You don't have those opportunities.
Well,
Oh, Philip, I think what you asked me about sport and life.
Sport is life, yeah. Well,
Yes.
I just want to hear you talk about that a bit more.
Well, you hear the expression all the while. Even we hear it in the Caribbean. Cricket is a reflection of life in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
What you go through in sport, a lot of sports is a reflection of the life that you're living. And as we have seen in the Caribbean, when discipline starts to fall, our cricket lacks discipline as well. Because it is reflecting the society in which we are coming from and which we are living. And that is a continuous thing. Thierry Henry gave examples about his life and about the sport that he was playing as well as a footballer. You know, I'm not going to give everybody everything. You must go and get the book and read
Exactly.
Yeah,
I was going to say, you don't talk about everything.
Yeah.
See, I'm being careful not to talk about everything, right? So,
but you know, it is the way it is. Life and sport interact.
yes.
Yep.
And when you talk about you can fix one without the other, that doesn't make sense. And that's why when so many people come to me and talk about what can we do in cricket or what can we do in football or what can we do in racing or whatever, I'll give them my opinion as to how they think they can do a little tinkling whatever sport they're doing. But it's the society that needs fixing. If you fix the society, every sport will be fine. Because all the people that play sport, administer sport, watch sport, they come from the society. So the society, everything is good.
So do you think then the behaviors in sport or the performance in sport starts to be a good indicator of where society is going, or progress in society can be sort of seen within sport?
I think one can influence the other. I think, as a matter of fact, they can influence each other in each direction.
In each direction as well.
Yes, definitely. Okay. Life can influence sport, and sport can influence life, but they have to go together. And I'll give you an example why I say they have to go together. Because people again talking about sport being multiracial and diversify sport and that sort of thing. I say to them, that's not going to solve the problem. And I say to them this. In apartheid South Africa, if the apartheid government had said all sport is going to be diversified, anybody can play sport, anybody, where we come from, you can play sport. But at the end of the day, you go back to the apartheid system that you're living in. How does that help? So they have to work together. You can't have one without the other.
So I was just gonna jump in there. There's this one story. I shared this with Andre yesterday when we were just having a quick catch up. That might be talking about hope as well. There's a young lady called Emma Wilson, I think is her name. She's 22 years old, British, white young lady, 22 years old, and she won a bronze medal in windsurfing at the Olympics 2 days ago. And when they were interviewing her, she's quite shy and wasn't really looking at the camera. But when they asked her what has inspired you or who has inspired you to become an Olympian and to win a medal, she called two names. First name she called Usain Bolt, 2012. Second name she called was Jess Innes. There were her inspirations and idols to become a sports person and to pursue excellence. And I smiled. I said, that's an interesting indicator. Because here's this young white girl, and the two people she identified as her sort of heroes or athletic inspiration are two black people.
And I think your mum would have listened to that, Mikey, and said, "We got a chance.
We got a chance."
Yeah, but I tell you, the atmosphere is changing. The entire thing is changing. You know, 20 years ago, nobody would have said that.
Yeah.
But the thing is changing. You know, even if they wanted to say that 20 years ago, they would have felt, can I say this?
I
Because
can't say that. Yeah.
around them, they would have felt the vibes. That's not something that they should have said. But as I said, it's changing. It is changing, believe me.
That's
I do
beautiful.
expect to